Hey everybody, this is me, it's Undead Viking, coming to you with another video review. Just as a little bit of an explanation for this video. For the longest time, the company that I work for, I worked a really weird schedule. I guess it's not weird if you work it yourself. I mean, it was just not normal. I'd have to go to work at 4:30 in the morning, and I'd work till about 1 or 1:30. And basically I had that position because nobody else who did my job was able to get there that early. And so then they needed somebody to do what I did to cover those hours. And then eventually, obviously, people come in throughout my shift and, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, so I did that shift for quite a long time. And it actually worked really well for me because, I was able to pick up my daughter from school. And I got to spend all afternoon with my kids, which was really awesome. And the one thing that did kind of stink about it was, though, I'd get home with my kids, and usually because I was up, fairly late the night before, as far as like 9 or 10, I usually end up napping a lot during the day, and then so if both of my kids happened to fall asleep, it was like, oh, thank goodness, nappy time. But so I mean, as the week went on, I'd just gradually lose sleep, and I'd have a really long, like Friday night. I wouldn't get up the next morning until noon or so. That part of the whole thing stunk. But anyway, the reason I'm explaining this to you is, like, recently I took another position at my job. I got offered a position I just couldn't say no to, and I started working like a normal shift, like a normal real life job, 8 to 5. And so and I love my new job, and I love my new position at my job. But one of the really cool things is that I started working with a group of people side by side, and I found out that a lot of them are enthusiasts as far as with board games and card games. And I've been able to enjoy my lunch hour, and we have our sandwich or whatever, and we'll play like a short little board game or a card game while in our lunchroom, which is really awesome. And so I mean, we've done things like we've played X-Wing actually, and we've done like lots of like quick little like card games, stuff like that. And a game that I played a lot of, when it first came out, and then it was one of those, the game was really awesome and it was really fun. And then I just kind of got put back on the shelf, and I just kind of forgot about it. But then a few people said, hey, bring something new that we haven't played before, and that we haven't played. And I brought Fleet with me. Fleet is a card game with some bidding aspects that centers around the idea of fishing in the Alaskan North. And so it's about getting different ships and different contracts, and then going fishing and collecting those fish, and then and being able to turn the fish that you get into resources that you're able to purchase more contracts and more boats and so forth. And it's just a fun little game that just kind of escalates rather quickly, and you just kind of build an engine, and just after a certain number of rounds you figure out who won the game. And it's relatively simple, but I really enjoyed it, and it was one of those games that I always meant to review, but I just never got around to it. But then lately I've been playing the heck out of this at work, because there's a group of 4 of us, and we all really have enjoyed the heck out of this. And so I just realized, I need to tell everybody just how cool this game is, especially if you just got like 30 minutes or ever play a game. So I'm gonna tell you all about Fleet, and then I'll tell you exactly why I like it, and then, as always, hopefully somewhere along the line you will figure out whether or not that is something that you want to add to your collection. So all right, well, let's show you how to play Fleet. Playing Fleet is a really, really simple game, but don't let that fool you. The game has a lot of really, really good decisions and a lot of intriguing gameplay. There are 2 types of cards in the game. This is a card game. There are these, which are the different fish licenses that you'll be bidding on and using to fish for these little wooden cubes over here that are called fish crates. And then there is this giant deck of cards that is the boat deck, and those are the different boats that you'll be using, the different fishing boats. One that will allow you to use these licenses to get these crates. To start the game, each person, I'm going to show you like a 4-person game. I'm not like, just so you know. You get 1 card of each type of boat. So like a shrimp boat, a processing vessel, king crab, tuna, lobster, and cod. Where's your cod now? Anyway, these cards all have a cost. That's the cost to launch the boat. A victory point, with how many victory points they're worth at the end of the game, and these coins here are the money value of the particular boat, and you'll be using cards like this as money during the game, and so that's what that particular card's worth. After you get the game set up, the first step of the game is that you turn over as many licenses as there are people. So for having a 4-player game, we'll turn over 4 of them. I have a processing vessel, a shrimp boat, a tuna boat, and a cod boat. Now, I'm just going to show you quick. On the bottom of all these licenses, they have a minimum cost. So when you're auctioning this, that's how the minimum the auction has to start out with is $4. And it's worth 4 victory points at the end of the game. Also, each one of them will have this little bonus area down here. In the case of the shrimp licenses, for each one of these you have 1 license, 2 license, 3 license, 4 licenses. You get to deduct a certain number of coins for the cost of any of your transactions you have during the game. So shrimp licenses are actually very, very useful. Later on, you don't have to pay as much if you have a lot of these. Some of the other ones are a little bit different. Like here, a cod license. This is the launching of boats. When you launch a boat, you can only launch a single boat. But in this case, when you are able to launch boats, you can launch 2 of them, as you can see here. And if you actually launch a boat, you get to draw a card as a bonus for having a cod license. And in about 2, you get 2 cards, and so on and so forth. Cards are very important because, as I mentioned, they're money and they're different fish licenses and things like that. And nothing sucks more than not being able to get a certain fishing boat when you have a lucrative fishing license that you're not able to take advantage of. Just quickly, I'll show you the tuna boat. The tuna gets a draw bonus. The last thing you do at the end of every turn is you get to draw 2 cards and you discard 1. Well, with the tuna license, like with one of them, you get to draw 2 cards. You keep them both. With 2, you get to draw 3 cards, discard 1, and so on and so forth. And so, the tuna license gets better and better. And then the processing vessel license. When you have a processing vessel, you're allowed to take the fish that you get from the water, and you're able to go ahead and place those crates onto this particular boat. And when you do that, they become money, each worth 1 coin each, and so you can use that later on for more purposes. But you can also use that at that point. You can trade one of those cubes in to draw a card. And so if you see here, one of them, you trade in a cube, you get 1 card. Trade in a cube, you get 2 cards, and so on and so forth. And so it can actually be very useful as far as that's concerned. So, anyway, so what happens is, like a lot of auction games, the first player says, I'm going to go for this one, I'm bidding 4. That's the minimum, 5, 6, whatever. And people bid and trying to bid for the auction. Now, unlike other auction games, once you win an auction, you're I shouldn't say all auction games, but unlike a lot of auction games, once you win an auction, you're out. You don't get to win. You don't get to be part of anything. Basically, each person will get a license if they want one. Obviously, you have to be able to pay for it. So it's very interesting because in this case, since you're guaranteed to have one, if you're the last person, you're kind of guaranteed to get one of these cards, and you get to pay the minimum. But so if you have a situation where you don't really care which one you get, or you're willing to get whatever, you're in a better position. But a lot of times there's one that you really, really want, and most likely more than just you is really going to want that. But anyway, so you do that, you auction, everybody gets one or doesn't get one. If any of the licenses don't get taken, you still just discard them and you get rid of them, and you replace them with 4 fresh new licenses at the next turn. So let's just, for the sake of an argument, let's just say we got the shrimp license. So now you move on to the next phase, and what's really good about these phases of the game is that each of these phases takes place at the same time. You don't really have to like wait for each person to do what they're doing unless you don't trust them to do it correctly. But so in this case, you have the shrimp license, and so you get to launch a boat. So you look through your deck of cards, and you find your shrimp, and you go, okay, I'm going to launch this. But it costs 1 to do so. Oh, but I have a shrimp license, so it costs 1 less. So I can just go ahead and launch my boat like so. And now I can say, well, I'm going to, I have to captain that particular boat, so it can actually go out on sea and fish. So what you do to captain a boat, you have to take another one of your cards. Say, like, you look through them all and you try to find one that you don't think you're going to use. And let's go ahead and just take the king crab boat, and you just place it face down like that. And now you've captained that boat, and when we go on to the next phase, we're going to be able to fish with this particular vessel. So when we go on to the next phase, we're fishing, we place a cube on there saying that it has successfully fished and garnered a crate of fish on that particular boat, but we haven't processed it yet, so we can't use it. You can have a maximum of 4 crates on any of your boats. Once you get 4, you can't fish for any more. You gotta actually process the fish. So just to show you how that works, if you have a processing vessel, you just license on there. You don't have to have a boat out there for it. As long as you have the processing vessel license, you can go ahead and take a cube and place it on there. That you can just take that from the boat and you move it onto this. And now this can be used as money during the next turn, or if you prefer, you can, as I said, you can trade it in and draw another card. And as I said, drawing cards is very important. Once that is done, if you've done the process and taken your option of trading in a cube for another card, you then move on to the last phase, which is drawing 2 cards and keeping 1. So we draw 2 here and see what we get. Well, looks like the decision's made for me as I got 2 tuna cards. That's okay though, because I mean tuna's okay, and plus there were 3s. That's pretty good. And so we just go ahead and place that in the discard like so, and we'll move on to the next phase of the game. And we will go ahead and draw 4 more of these. We got a shrimp, a lobster, another processing vessel, and another lobster. So now, I mean, I've got a lot of options. Do I want to, double up my shrimp or my processing vessel? Do I want to expand and go into a lobster area? I mean, you also have to look at the cards that you have. It's like, I don't have a shrimp license in here. So I mean, that really maybe wouldn't be a good idea, but I do have a lobster license, so maybe I want to go after one of those lobster cards. And so that's how you have to kind of have a hand management situation going on, and also just forward thinking. I mean, what do I want to actually be able to use and put in front of me? And so the game continues like that until either you've used up all these cubes, because you don't return those. Once you've spent them, you don't return the supply, as I said, or you've used up all of these particular contracts. Basically, the moment that you can't actually replenish out here, because there isn't enough contracts here or licenses here to replenish in the middle of the auction phase, then the game is over. You total the victory points. As each of these has a victory point, your boats have victory points, and so on. And then you total those victory points, and whoever's got the most wins. Now, before I move on and tell you what I think of the game, I just wanted to show you there are a couple of other licenses that are in the game that are kind of like, these are the elite licenses that I mentioned earlier. One of them is a Fisherman's Pub. As you can see, it costs 10 up there, and it's worth 10 victory points. It doesn't do anything other than just being worth some victory points at the end of the game. Obviously, since it costs 10, it's kind of expensive, and that's why you put it kind of later on in the game, so it's easier for people to actually be able to purchase. There are also these king crab licenses, and see, they cost 10, they're worth 5 victory points, but they also have these little bonuses in the bottom at the end of the game. Like this one's worth 1 victory point for every boat that you have out captained, and this one is worth victory points for the number of different licenses that you have. And this one is 1 victory point for every 3 cubes that you have, and worth a maximum of 10 victory points. And so you have that as a way to gain bonuses as well. So there you go. That's how you play Fleet. I really like how there's no real player interaction other than the auction bidding, but there is definitely a lot of trying to guess what the other people are going to be going for as far as the licenses during that auction bidding phase. And I really like how the fact that with the hand management and going after the right license and processing the fish and everything like that, it all makes for very tough decisions as far as a player goes. And also it's one of those games where efficiency is key. You never want to have a wasted action because the game doesn't take that long to be over with. The games can, 4 players that know how to play the game, you can burn through this in 30 minutes or even a little less. And so you don't want to ever have a wasted turn. You always want to do the best possible option that you always have every time that you play. And that's why I kind of look at this. It's got a filler length, of like 30 minutes or less, but it doesn't have a filler mentality, if that makes sense. It's one of those things that it definitely makes you think, and it's challenging, and it's a heck of a lot of fun. But let me tell you exactly why I feel that way. Alright, so there you go. You know how to play Fleet. So, pretty simple game, actually. The mechanics are really straightforward, and they're easy to figure out. And not at all difficult as far as the actual playing. Now, I did find that the game, like with a lot of card games, the symbols on the cards and trying to determine what those symbols do and mean, you do have a like that first 2 games or maybe 3 games of like, you're like, what does this frickin' thing mean? Hashtag, the crossed off question mark followed by a horseshoe. What does that do again? You have to look up in the rule books, and you're like, all right, hold on, what does that say? It says you can draw an extra card for 3 more cubes, but then you have to discard 1. Oh, okay. It's just stuff like that. I mean, at the very least, it isn't Race for the Galaxy as far as that goes. But I mean, but once you get over that little tiny hump, and trust me, there isn't much of a learning curve. The game does really open up and starts being a lot of fun. You do have a situation though, if you have 2 or 3 people that know how to play the game, and you got some newcomers, there is a little bit of a frustration, I guess. Some people that know exactly what each card does, because if you're going to teach the game, I would strongly suggest, like, first thing you do is you put out all the cards and you say, this is what this license do, this is what this license does, and so on and so forth. This is the best way to how you get points, and explain how the game runs. I mean, and you should do that anyway. This definitely isn't unless everybody's totally new to the game, it isn't a learn as you go type of situation. Now, that being said, I mean, the game is really fun. I've had a few people tell me that, like, they feel like it should have a complexity that added to it that just doesn't exist. And I asked them kind of what they meant by that, and they said, well, it just seems like the turns are too, bam, 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 bam. They just kind of line up and you do your action, and it doesn't really afford branching off and doing different things. And I guess I can understand that to an extent, but I really dig the game. I love bidding games. I really enjoy the whole idea of trying to figure out in your head, okay, I can pay 3 or I can pay 4 for this, but I can't pay more than 5 because then it just isn't worth it to me. Just saying how many turns do we have left of the game? This thing isn't worth anything to me right now. How many? What's it worth? As far as that goes. This is a game that has that aspect to it. It also has that whole situation where you use up a card that you might very well want to use, because you have to use those, because the cards are not only boats, but you can put a card down, and then that's your captain. You can also, like, you use your cards to pay for doing other things, and so there's those tough decisions as far as which cards you want to use. Do I need a cod license right now, or do I want a shrimp license, and things like that. And and it's one of those things where you're kind of waiting maybe for a certain license to show up that'll be really helpful for you. And I like that part of the game. I like the fact that it isn't going to be, because of the fact that it has kind of a player-determined end of game, depending on how fast you're going through the like cubes and other things. You know, it has a really good feeling of like a kind of a pacing frustration, if you will. You know, because of the fact that like you never feel like you have enough time to do everything you want, you know, or you're not getting the right card that you need, you know, for whatever you want, and so you have to make do with what you get. And so I enjoy that, and probably like the best thing about it is that the game can be a little frustrating at times when like you just can't seem to get that license you need, or you just can't seem to ever get enough crates to get the, you know, and put the right boat out, or you know, and get a captain on there, or what have you, and you just have a really horrible game and you get blown out of the water. Well, the game like takes like 30 minutes with like a group of 4 people that know how to play the game. And so if you have an hour-long lunch break, you can definitely just play it again. You know, maybe that goes to an hour and 10 minutes, but don't tell my boss. But, you know, so it's really one of those, it isn't really a filler in my mind, because it's just too long to be a filler. But it's challenging and heavy enough to actually, it isn't just a throwaway, I don't have to think about a game where just, yeah, fine, throw the cards down, throw the cards down. You know, it's a game where I have to sit there and pause and think and you know, try to just, and it's really competitive. And I guess that's what I really enjoy. With the guys that I play with during my lunch break, this is one of the most competitive games we've played in a long time. I mean, there's other games we played over our lunch break that have just been kind of for fun, you know, we just don't really care who wins. But when it comes down to this, you know, we're pretty serious about this one. We definitely want to beat each other. I mean, so it's made for a very, very good lunch break type of game. I guess if you don't like random in card games, or if you don't like bidding, I guess. I mean, and bidding isn't a huge part of the game, but it's there. I definitely don't think it's a really great 2-player game. I just don't think games with bidding aspects make really good 2-player games. It's just been my opinion and my experience. I mean, if you're just bidding against one person, you need that third person just to kind of bounce everything off of. And you know, for that matter, I mean, the game shines with 4, it's okay with 3, and it ain't really great with 2. So, you know, and that's just my feelings as far as the number of players. So if you're only going to play this with one person, like you only got one other person you can play the game with, I think it's a try before you buy type of situation. If you can go to your local game store and just say, hey, can I give that one a shot, and you know, see if it's something you'll like. So there you go. Fleet. It's, you know, it's one of those games that the more you play it, the more fun it gets, because everybody starts understanding how all the cards work. They understand how you know, just how the flow of the game is, and it's one of those. It's that click that I've said this in a few reviews. There's that click moment of the game where the actual like mechanics of the game fall away, and because you know exactly how to play the game now, and you now enter into the world of where all of your strategy in your mind gets to actually engage, not with just how you actually play the damn game, but actually how you can start trying to win the damn game. So there you go. Alright, well, that was me, Undead Viking. This is the game Fleet. You can find it almost everywhere online, so if that's something you think you want to add to your gaming collection, by all means, go ahead and do so. Alright, well, if you have any questions or comments or ideas, by all means, leave those below down there, and I will answer those to the best of my ability. Until then, yeah, just you have an awesome life and have an awesome day, and until the next video, I'll see you then. Bye-bye now.